With the main vac on, I can hear air gushing through this already, so that's good. And now when I turn this on, because it's connected to my vacuum, everything should happen. Or not. What you'll see on the top of my MFT are lots of little yellow dots, and I just designed some little plugs because I couldn't see any on printables. We're going to worry about that another day. I'll tell you all about that later, because today we're just going to be looking at, excuse my dodgy panning, that right there. Now that is the router attachment to this whole unit. Let me get it up and into place. And just like it was magic, boof, and moving up. A router. Let me give you a quick going over that. What we've got is the router plate that I attached a router to in a previous video. That is in the top here. All I did was I traced around the plate with a pencil, and then I routed that out half the depth, or just over the depth of the plate itself, and then I cut a hole in the middle. That's it. There's a million people on YouTube showing you how to do that, so I figured I didn't really need to do that. Super easy process, just route and cut. Then obviously I made this base because everything has this 10 centimetre base, so it hits roughly the same height, not quite, but more or less. I've still got to just do my adjusters on this setup so it's flush with the table, but we'll worry about that another day. So that's what this is. Now this bad boy right here, this is just a box. It's a box that is pocket hole screwed, and I've 3D printed some brackets just for extra safety. That's just attached to the top section. Now then, it's not really holding any weight other than its own weight. Now, because it's 18mm MDF, it is pretty heavy, but yeah, it's not really doing anything else other than that, because this is just going to have the dust. Underneath, I printed, if you saw it on my Instagram, if you're not following me on Instagram, please go and do so, because I do a lot of sort of behind the scenes stuff on there. But I 3D printed 100mm hose adapter, and then I bored a hole through the bottom section of this, which I then attached the hose adapter to, so I can put my 100mm hose on there, and that will hopefully keep this box relatively dust free. Now I can remove the box. I've got a couple of screws there, and that will allow me to remove the front of the box without having to take everything out if I want to, but hopefully I won't have to do that. Now, because I had a 3D printed thing underneath there, this morning I just had to knock up just like a frame just to make sure that that's protected. It's only a touch longer than the 3D pipe underneath there, but there you go. I made a hole in the back of the box, and because I used a hole saw to do it, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, then I was able to reuse the bit that came out of it with a bit of tape packed around the outside to then put around the plug cable coming from the router, and then that is all kind of routed up underneath the table there. So that's all nice and tidy. But yeah, being able to put that plug back in made life a lot easier, rather than having to cut a hole to get the plug out and then, you know, just putting another bit of trying to make another bit of MDF fit. That worked out really well. Yeah, so that's routed round to the front here. Inside here, I'll try and take some B-roll of this. I've got a plug socket underneath here that I've wired in via this. This isn't a proper MVR switch, but it is an easy on-off from the front, and that's why I've got this grotty old cable attached to it. So the router goes into the 3-pin plug that's underneath there. That then goes into here, and that is on that plug there. Now this is the switch that I used on my previous router table build, so I know it works and that's all fine. I've not actually turned the router on yet, so I don't know for sure that I've not broken anything, but you know, we'll worry about that later. This was the fence that I made for my previous router table. It's nothing spectacular, it's pretty badly made to be fair, and I need to remake one altogether. So if you would be interested in me properly making a router fence, then let me know, because I know it's one of those videos there's loads of on YouTube as well. But if you want to see me make one that's better than this, which, let's face it, wouldn't be hard, then please do let me know, and I'll make a dedicated video about it. But seeing I was going to make one today, but it's hot as balls outside, so I'm going to reuse this but make it worthwhile, and I'm going to upgrade it by making it better. We've got a couple of short bits of rail which I can use to go. I'll sort of measure that out roughly to be there and there, and then I can move that back to there if needs be. I can't think of a reason why I would need it to be further away from the cutter, but I also 3D printed this bad boy, and I think this will be a great addition. And I just checked, and it just about fits in there. It's like I knew about this before. You know, it's a bit high, so I've got to make something to pop that onto that. But yeah, I'm pretty right. So the challenge that I'm gonna have is just figuring out exactly where these runners are, so I can get these T-tracks in the right place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach them to the underside, and then I'm going to use a square to make sure that they're square. One thing I may come a cropper on, I've just realised, are the pocket screws that I've attached to the underside of this to attach the dust box. Well, that could be problematic. Right, I've had a think, and I'm going to go wider than I've got on here, but I can just re-drill these, so that's no big hoo-ha. So that's the plan. Anybody else got an apron and they have to use pliers to find their pens? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to 3D print a clip that goes on the outside of a pencil, like pens have, you know? That would work, wouldn't it? Do you want one? Would you buy them? Would you? Would you? Right, so that's there, there and there. How far in is that? Why don't I cut a 3cm strip that I can just put to the side of each one of these? Ah, genius. Okay, now some blue tape. Why does it always block up? Comment below for your favourite ways to stop super glue from blocking up and being a massive pain in the arse. With the side. And that's lined up with that side. So hopefully that'll give us our stop blocks to make sure these are in the right place. That'll ding dang do for me. Not very scientific, not very clever, but gives us an idea. So now all I've got to do is write that out without cocking up, which, you know, to some people would be pretty easy. For me, bit of a challenge. What I'm doing now is I've got a bit in the router, and I'm just trying to make sure that we can get this as a guide. I did make a little guide thingy for routers at one point in time, which would be great around now, but I've not made one for this particular router. Maybe I need to make one of them square router things. I think Trend sells one, but I'll have to make one to put your router in, and that would be a good idea. Right, so what I've got there is a square, so I should be able to go like that, that, and then just come up the middle and do a couple more passes. But that should stop me going anywhere that I shouldn't go. And the reason that I went to so much aggro to do that was so I could use the dust guard, because you can't really see what you're doing with a router. Now, we also have to measure the depth. So I'm just going to pop the router on top of one of the jobbies. Well, there's the first problem. My thing's too high for my, what's the name? So window and mask it is. Okay, that's far too deep. So we're going to have to do this in more than one pass. Unlike me, that's a relatively tidy hole. However, very much like me, I've made it too big. Ah well, bit of filler, that'll sort that right out. Ah, now it's too tight. Right, and now it's too big, but it matches the other side, so whoop-de-doo, that'll do. A bit of the 100 grit Smurdex on a sanding pad will round out the end of the aluminium T-track. I know I could square off the cuts that I've just made, but I don't know, rounding things off just sounds like it might be nicer. Luckily, this 100, is it 100 or 80 that I'm using? 100, I think it is. I know 80 does a grand job. If you haven't tried this Smurdex yet, definitely give it a go. There's a link in my description. I don't get anything for it, but give it a try. I think it's the best stuff. Also, I'm going to use some Forge Fast 3.5 by 16s. I haven't got a little bit small enough, but luckily you get a bit when you get these Torx head screws. And I'm not going to worry about pre-drilling. I'm just going to bang these bad boys straight in. I'm using a drill just because it's less angry than the impact driver, and I love my impact driver, but less likely to strip the holes. So what I've done now is I've just shortened the bolts, and I've also locked the knob in between the head of this bolt and a nut at the bottom there. I'm going to pop a washer on and make sure, no, that's the wrong hole. Make sure that's in there like so. Now, moment of truth time. Ha! Boom! Right, that's that. Now then, we also had these poking through there. Let's see if I've got some nuts and wing nuts that I can put on the back of those. Right, these are M6, and I 3D printed a load of wing nuts to fit different types of nuts and bolts and things. Well, that instantly makes that better. I'm just going to quickly pre-drill these holes just because then I can countersink them. I need to make the air hole a little bit bigger, so I'm using one of these spiky things that I've had for ages and not used. Not really sure what it's meant to do, but it does a grand job of this. Well, I'll have to see if I can find when I ordered this, which is probably a couple of years ago. If I do, I'll put a link in the description. So a professional would put silicone sealant and what have you all around here to make sure it gets a nice solid seal. I don't know if I'm going to be keeping this fence, so I'm just going to throw it together as is and we'll take it from there. I'm not drilling, I'm just going to bang in these little forge fast screws again. And these, once again, are the 3.5 by 16. Okay, and like I said, this is overhanging here, but it's not air overhang, so I can always put a block there if I want to. But that should be pretty much it. Let's see if the router works now, shall we? Right, so I've got that attached. I've kind of jerry-rigged my cam lock system to it, because I've got to 3D print another hose adapter for the router now. But that's no really big balls. I'll try and get that done over the next couple of nights. Now then, let's see if everything works. So the adapter that I'm using is an extreme extension with X's at the start. I didn't buy it, I got this second hand, but I will leave a link to it down below. It has just a single Allen key rather than worrying about messing around with spanners, which makes life a lot easier. Okay, got a big old chamfering bit there. Just in case you were unaware, 1/2 inch bits and some 1/4 inch bits or 8mm or whatever they are will have little depth guides for where it's suggested that they go down to on the how's your father. Now, something that I've just realised is I don't think this. It might be okay. It might be okay. Right, let's put this bad boy down again. I could put a drill on this and do it like that, I suppose, but where would the fun be? Alrighty. So, ordinarily, using the bearing bit, I wouldn't necessarily need to use a fence, but I'm going to, just because there's an extra bit of vacuum going on there as well. So I'm going to turn the big vac on, and then I've got this offcut of sapele, which we'll see about putting a chamfer on. With the main vac on, I can hear air gushing through this already, so that's good. And now when I turn this on, because it's connected to my vacuum, everything should happen. Or not. Did I turn it on at the plug? Bugger.